Hey up everybody, my name's Joshua Morrison, director of Johnny Moz's Lessons in Confidence. Today I want to talk to you a little bit about a creative endeavour that I undertook about 10 years ago. It was one of my first big creative endeavours, and it's something that's very easy. You need no resources, you don't need anything to get this started. You just need a creative imagination, maybe pen and paper, maybe a computer to type some things down, maybe some free alternative to Photoshop if you really want. Just stuff like that. You don't need anything big. And this creative endeavour is called world building. If you go on Reddit and you Google world building, they have a little subreddit that's all dedicated to it. So what is world building? First off, well, you know, like J.R.R. Tolkien, the fucking Middle Earth, or Westeros, or the sci-fi universe of Mass Effect or Star Wars or whatever, right? Those are worlds, right? They are little sort of fictional universes designed to tell a story, to be the setting for a grand story. It doesn't have to be a grand story, but generally it is a grand story, right? And so you come up with this alternate universe. It can be an alternate history. It can be set in this current world that we live in. It can be a totally different world that has no relation to what we have whatsoever. It can be whatever you want to be, right? And so from there, you create this little world, and then you create history. You figure out the geography, you figure out where things are, who the people are, what's the power structure like, what's the political system like, what's the societal structure like, all that kind of stuff. You figure all that out. And then once you have that all figured out, you've got a playground to tell creative stories and a narrative-driven thing. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about a world that I made when I was 14. It's one that's semi-based on this world. Like this world right now, today, 2025, could be happening in this world that I came up with. But there's a bit of a sci-fi twist, and it goes into alien races and stuff like that. So I'll start off from the main entry point into the main story that I was trying to come up with, right? So there was this kid called Haiwa, right? I was really into anime at the time, so he was called Haiwa, right? And the year is like 2045, and they're sort of saying, oh God, there's going to be some nuclear disasters going on. We're all like, the political sphere is going a bit to pot. The oil lack of oil's happening. People are fighting over that. People are fighting over water and resources and all that sort of stuff, right? So these people come up with this idea. We're going to do a big intergenerational rocket, right? Or like some cryo sleep fucking rocket, so that they can start civilization and humanity anew somewhere else, almost like, Noah's Ark a little bit. And so Haiwa and his family are kind of picked for that. They fly off and they launch, and then maybe 30 years later the nukes drop, and so this all becomes like a nuclear Armageddon. So it was a good thing that they did that. So yeah, they go to the Alpha Centauri system, which is, in real life, that's the nearest star system to us. It's a trinary. There's 3 stars. There's 2 main ones that are both kind of like our sun, and they orbit like one another really close and tightly, and to the point where planets kind of orbit both of them. And then there's this other star called Proxima Centauri, which is a little red dwarf, and that's miles out. That's like further than where Pluto is in our solar system, right? So it's kind of built like that. And then when I looked into the exoplanets and stuff, like exoplanets were kind of a new thing when I started doing this, right? And so I looked at the exoplanets around the Alpha Centauri system, and it turned out that there was one that was just about in the Goldilocks zone, and it was sort of Earth-sized. I think in reality it's not habitable at all, but I made it habitable because I can. And so this rocket goes to the Alpha Centauri system, and it lands on this planet, and it lands in the jungle, right? And so what happens is these like bandit, alien, pirate fucking things, they come through the jungle, and they're kind of evil basically, and they come and like kidnap a load of people, right? And they kidnap everyone, but Haiwa manages to escape, but he gets beamed up by some spaceship, right? And he ends up in the spaceship, and they do a load of experiments on him because he's the man from the past. He's the 1,000-year-old man, right? Yeah, we're in the year 3000 now. I forgot to mention that. We're in the year like 3080 or some shit like that, right? And so one of the women that's working on this rocket ship that's experimenting on Hiwa, figuring out what's up with him. She's called Clavashar Sheshimeka, right? I was really into fucking anime at the time. And basically, she's sort of not particularly happy about all this experimentation stuff. So she takes Hiwa and she escapes the rocket, right? And she flies back to the Sol system, our solar system, and she gets in via like Neptune, right? And there's on Triton, which is the moon of Neptune, there's like this sort of shitty underground sort of red light district civilization, right? Where everyone's a criminal and there's a mafia everywhere. It's like a mafia state. And so they sort of hunker down there, try and get some protection, try and like get new identities and stuff. And then it just sort of takes you through the rest of the solar system, right? There was some bollocks fucking Deus Ex Machina reason that she had to go around like collecting a load of fucking objects. You know, that's what they always do on these adventure things. Oh, you need to go collect all these objects. So she takes Hiwa and they go collecting all these fucking objects. There's one of these objects on Mars, there's one on Earth, there's one on Europa, right? And there's a big fish kingdom underneath Europa. On Mars, basically like the criminals have colonized Mars and just turned it into like this kind of place just for the rich and powerful, which is kind of weird foreshadowing. And then on Earth is this hugely overcrowded prison planet essentially, where everyone that's living there is kind of living under like a 1984 style fucking totalitarian regime. And yeah, they try and kidnap Hiwa when he goes there. He escapes because he's the main character. And oh, that's it, Mercury, right? They did this big geo fucking colonization project, right? Where they shifted Mercury and they moved Mercury to be a moon of Venus, right? They did that like the year 2700, right? What else? The moon is coming towards Earth and they're a bit worried about it. And Mars doesn't have any moons anymore. They shot those down because they thought that they're going to be becoming a problem in the next, few 100 million years. So they're thinking ahead, right? So after they get all these objects, they have to go back to the Alpha Centauri system to go to this planet. And the planet, I think it was called Palengard, right? Which is a very Tolkien-y sort of fucking name. And there were these, there were loads of alien, like, sentient species on this planet, right? The ones I remember, there's the Palin, which are basically like the fucking Nords of my little world. They had the Osti, right, which were basically like the Solarians. They were like the scientific sort of reptilian kind of species. And then there were a load of other ones. The ones that were the pirates that destroyed everything at the beginning, that spaceship that fucked them all up, that was some other alien race. And there were also the maidens, right? And yeah, this is when me being 14 years old comes into it. So there's like 7 maidens, right, of whatever fucking religion is on this Palin planet, right? And they're kind of like the... What's the fucking thing in China that they have? You know, the head of Buddhism. Not the head of Buddhism. The head of... the guy that is like, he's being done at the moment for sniffing children's knobs or something like that. I can't remember what he's doing, but it's that guy. It's kind of like that, right? Like Buddha, not Buddha, but like a like a new god, like the Pope sort of thing, right? It's kind of like that. And there's 7 popes and basically maidens, and they're all representing different fucking things by colours. There's the maiden of black, the maiden of white, the maiden of red, the maiden of purple, the maiden of all these bullshit things. And I made sure that the colours didn't correlate to what they kind of mean on Earth. So the maiden of purple isn't to do with royalty, right? Because that's what it is on Earth. Like the maiden of water isn't the maiden of blue, like that sort of shit. Red isn't anger and fire and stuff. There's different sociological, societal fucking meanings to all this stuff, right? And I made a whole new like time system with a new date and calendar just for these aliens to use. And I figured out all their various forms of technology. Oh, there's also magic, and I can't remember how the magic worked. It was called like Mepusa or some shit like that, right? And it was basically like the scientific attempt at explaining, the traditional sort of Tolkien-y sort of magic, like shooting fire out your hands, but it's done by like, manipulating the atoms and the subatomic particles within you to move things into the exact physical space that you want them to be. So say telekinesis, for instance, you kind of take that to its ultimate extreme where you're manipulating individual atoms, but you do that on a grand scale. So you can turn this into a chair, you could turn an airplane into a burger, whatever, right? And that's kind of how the Mapusa fucking magic system worked. And with those Osti, the scientist sort of guys that I mentioned, there's this whole backstory with them where there's the Osti and then there's the Asti. And it's kind of like how you got like Homo sapiens and Neanderthals, right? But they're both really intelligent, both of these like Osti and Asti, in very similar ways, right? And they both realize that like this planet is too small for the both of them. So they arrange this big like Olympics type event on the moon, right? The moon of Palin, their planet, right? And they figure out this whole system of like various games to figure out which of the two species is ever so slightly more, you know, conscious and sentient and intelligent, right? And what they do is they get all of the Osti and all of the Asti and they put them in these two big domes, right? And then there's a third dome where the games actually happen. And if the Osti win, then the Asti get gassed, right? And all the Asti are killed because now the Osti are clearly like the superior species. So they're the ones that will go and conquer the universe. And the Asti will be, you know, lost to relics of time. And that is what ended up happening. The Osti won these Olympic Games. They had stuff like, you know, their version of chess. They had physical ones. They had mental challenges, psychological challenges, all that sort of shit. And they both knew, they worked together to figure this out. It wasn't like a war. It wasn't like a genocide. It was just like, may the better man win, essentially, was kind of how I saw it. And so that was a part of the history which I didn't really expand on much, but it's the one that sticks out the most to me. There's so much going on with this world. There was this, meanwhile, in that 1,000 years, right, back on Earth, right, while Hiwa was fucking traveling, so the nukes dropped and there was an apocalypse for like 300 years. And then technology and society sort of rose from the ashes and very quickly developed into this spacefaring civilization. So they colonized most of the solar system within the next sort of couple hundred years. So by the year sort of 2600, the human race is conquered most of the solar system. They're currently moving Mercury from where it is to be a moon of Venus so that they can colonize Venus, because they want to sort the population problem out on Earth. That's why they're moving and so much in the way of people and colonizing all these various planets and stuff. So yeah, all of that's kind of going on. I didn't really expand on what was going on Earth during that time. I did write one story about this woman called Caitlin who was on like the International Space Station sort of thing after the apocalypse has happened, right? And they've all run out of food, so they purposefully crashed the ISS, whatever it is. It wasn't the ISS, but it was sort of like that kind of thing. So they crash onto Earth in the apocalypse and they have to go surviving, and there was some story that happened. It was ripping off Fallout. And you know, the Hiwa story in the future was all kind of ripping off Mass Effect. You know, I was certainly wearing my influences on my sleeve because I was a 14-year-old kid who didn't really know what they were doing. And so, I don't know, I really enjoyed writing my little story and coming up with little parts of it and figuring out this world and the languages. I did a Konglang, which is a constructed language, and I made that up and I started, you know, writing in my textbooks at school in that language, in that alphabet, which, yeah, got my parents called in a couple times. And yeah, that's just basically the introduction to this world. I could go through all the documents. I've still got the documents. There's honestly like 100,000 words of just like logistical planning of this world and figuring things out. I did it over the course of a year and I loved doing it. It was so much fun. It was so rewarding. And it was so captivating and engaging to create these little stories and these little universes and stuff. And if you're sort of in a place where you're trying to figure yourself out creatively and you don't know where to start, I would say that's a fun place to start because it's the ultimate just creative exercise, just to see what you can do with your imagination and nothing else, you know. And I think I started it off with the question, what's going to happen in the future. And I kind of expanded on that and expanded on it a lot and started to figure out all the details and stuff. And it doesn't matter if it's scientifically accurate. I got a bit too into the idea of it being scientifically accurate. It doesn't need to be. It can be whatever you want. If you want to make it like pure fantasy, you can do that. If you want to make it pure sci-fi, you can do that. If you want to make it kind of just set here and make up your own government conspiracy and do it on a smaller scale, well, you can do that. There's no limitations, because it's kind of like D&D without a game attached to it. You know, if you're the dungeon master of D&D, you kind of make your own little world. It's kind of like that, but you just don't, you know, play a game with dice at the end of it. And yeah, that's kind of the video. I just wanted to explain to you some sort of bits about this world and tell you a little bit about this world, because I don't know what to do with it really. I can't make a film set in it. I can't be bothered to write a book set in it. So I just thought I'd just talk about it a little bit, because I've got all these documents. They're kind of fun. I enjoyed doing it. And yeah, I recommend you do it as well if you don't know quite what to get started with in terms of creativity in general. So if you have made some worlds, if you've done world building in the past, let me know. Talk to me about that a little bit, and get as nerdy as you want about your world, right? And because I imagine there's so much you have to say about it. Same way that I could have gone on longer and longer, but I tried to keep it, you know, cohesive. So that's about as much as I can really say whilst keeping it cohesive, and also just doing it off the cusp. I don't remember, like, I don't have the documents in front of me. If I did a video like looking through all the documents, I could probably talk about this for a lot longer. And yeah, that's kind of it really. So thank you very much for watching this video. I hope you managed to get something out of it. I hope you enjoyed it in general. I hope you're having a good day, good week, good life, and that your life is on a upwards trajectory to something very nice and positive. And yeah, that's basically it. So thank you very much for watching, everybody. Have a good rest of the day. Take care, and bye-bye.